Hello everyone, this is Dr. Connors again, and welcome to Module 6 of the Stop Fighting Cancer course. So this one is about cleaning up the environment. We always just think of environment like our yard or the environment in our neighborhood, but we're really talking about the environment in your body. Of course, clean up the environment of your house. We could have an entire module on that. Maybe we'll have to have that a sub-module about making sure that you're not using chemicals and things in your cleaners. That's not what we're going to really talk about here. We're talking about your body here. So really, when we're understanding a clean environment, we're talking about terrain theory. That's one word for it. We used to call it your milieu. Your milieu is how your cells are functioning or dysfunctioning is in part to their environment. The milieu, the terrain of the cell. What is your body bathing in from internal perspective? Well, years ago, this germ theory, when that came out, was going against the older theory of terrain theory, which was cleaning up the environment versus, well, every disease is caused from a germ. Well, you know what science is like when something new is discovered. Well, that's it, end all and be all for everything. That's what it was when finally the genome was mapped out. That, oh my gosh, we're going to find that human genome is so immense that that's what controls everything is our genes. Well, we found out that's not true, right? So it was the same thing back in the day when germs were discovered, when microscopy, the degree of ability to magnify something, was developed to the point where they could actually see bacteria and different microbes that could cause disease. Well, when that was discovered, then it was thought that microbes cause everything, and all disease is caused by microbes. Well, I am not against germ theory, understand. And I don't think it's germ theory versus terrain theory, like many naturopathy clinics might be pushing. But we have grown, the medical system is completely out of balance, and that everything is germ theory, meaning that it is the microbes that are causing everything, and if we just killed the microbes, then we would solve our problem, and not realizing we need to clean up the environment. So there's got to be a balance. Louis Pasteur was the person who really pushed germ theory, but interesting, on his deathbed, his last words were that germ theory is not correct, it's all about the terrain. And Antoine Béchamp is the one who was really pushing the terrain theory to clean up the environment. So it's easy to understand when we have little graphics like this that the terrain is very important. But let's not forget, we do still need to deal with the microbe. If you have an overabundance of microbes, no matter how healthy your terrain is, you could get sick. So we don't want to be too dogmatic there. It's really the soil versus the seed. You know, what causes I'm a gardener. I love to garden and I love to grow things. And I have a huge vegetable garden while my wife has this huge flower garden. And we are very understanding the fact that our soil is everything. So we're constantly adding compost and doing things to the soil naturally. We don't use chemical fertilizers, and certainly we don't use pesticides and herbicides and all that garbage. But working the soil to keep it as pure and clean as possible, healthy with good microbes, and having a healthy microbiota of the soil is going to produce the best plants. Ill soil, sick soil is going to produce a sick plant, because the root is really where it gains its nutrients and where it feeds the rest of the tree or the plant. So that healthy plant is coming from healthy roots. Well, so it is with our body. Our health, our overall health, is going to come from healthy cells that are feeding off of good nutrients in a healthy environment. It just makes sense. If you're listening to this, This is nothing new. You guys already understand this. But what we want to dig into here is understanding how we get rid of poisons that we're exposed to, regardless of how clean we eat and how clean we've made our environment, where we're not exposing ourselves to poisons and toxins and everything. You are still being exposed to, maybe 100 times more toxins than our ancestors were. So that is the key. No matter how well you do at, organic living, in one sense, you're still exposed to way more toxins than your ancestors. So you have to be detoxing. So the truth is your body is always detoxing. And if you're not detoxing, it will be a very short time before you're dead. So your body has different organs of detoxification. Your major organs are your liver, your kidneys, your colon, your skin, your lungs, how you get rid of poisons that you're exposed to on a moment-to-moment basis. But let's talk about these phases of detoxification, because I think this is really important, so important that I wrote a book about it. And normally when you hear about what are the phases of detoxification, those are phases of detoxification that are listed in physiology books about the liver. So you have phase 1, liver detoxification pathways that are controlled by certain genes. Phase 2, that are controlled by other genes. Those are your conjugation pathways. And then in phase 3, your pathways where you're creating bile and bonding the conjugated end products to bile to get rid of them out of the body. That's usually where it ends. Well, as I was doing a talk one day, this was several years ago, I was saying that's really not where detoxification ends, nor does where it starts. So once you put the end points of phase 2 into bile, that's phase 3, we'll talk about it in a second, it has to then go through the common bile duct to the gallbladder and then be excreted into the first part of the small intestine, and then it has to travel through 25 feet of the small intestine and 10 feet of the large intestine to finally be deposited into the toilet. Well, all sorts of bad things can happen between the liver excreting the bile through the common bile duct and it emptying into the toilet. And that's where we can have major problems. So let's go through some of these quickly, and I'll share on this Stop Fighting Cancer series more videos about the book that I made, and also a free download of that book that you can have as well. So the truth is we're all poisoned no matter how well you take care of yourself, no matter how well you eat. Even if you're eating all organic, you're still exposed to glyphosates, other pesticides, other herbicides, that no matter what, there's cross-contamination. It's everywhere. So just get over thinking that you are living such a clean life that you're protecting yourself. So phase 6, so remember I said there's phase 1, 2, 3 that are going on in the liver. Let's go down to the end point first. Phase 6 is elimination. And this is a picture of an aloe plant, because Cape aloe is a wonderful aid to elimination, meaning if you have some constipation problems, using a little bit of Cape aloe can really solve that problem. It can stimulate peristalsis, that's the contraction of the muscles that surround the intestinal wall, and it can help draw water into the colon, similar to magnesium, and it can help eliminate it. I'll share a video in my book, in the 7 Phases of Detoxification book. It has a bunch of different products that you could use with this. I don't want to bog down this module with that because I have that in another place. But proper elimination, if you're not having at least one bowel movement a day, you're not properly eliminating. So, believe it or not, I've had people say, oh yeah, I have good bowel movements, normal, I have them every 3 days, just like clockwork. Well, you are severely constipated and you are severely poisoning yourself, because if you're not getting out what's on the inside, you're reabsorbing that, and you are making your body extremely toxic. And if you want to get cancer, then be constipated. So that is the key. If you are not eliminating at least once a day, and a good elimination where you're getting everything out that you felt like you ate the day before, then you're reabsorbing all those poisons and you are making yourself very toxic and very sick. Phase 5 is binding toxins in the gut. Binding toxins in the gut. So even if you're having a daily bowel movement and you feel like you're emptying everything out in the gut, all the poisons that your liver has gotten rid of, or hopefully the poisons that you didn't absorb that you were exposed to through your diet, are in the lumen of the intestine. So technically, they're not inside your body if they're in the lumen of the intestine. So they're in a tube within a tube of your body. And you want them to stay in that tube to end up in the toilet. So in order to do that, using certain binders can be very beneficial. Here's a benefit of fiber. There's all sorts of different binders that are on the market, charcoal and sodium alginate, and we could have a list of a lot of them. But using binders can grab onto stuff in the gut and hold it in the gut so you don't reabsorb it. This is a very important phase, especially if you have a cancer that is hormonal driven, meaning if you have ER, PR, or HER2 positive cancer, you definitely want to be using binding agents so that you're grabbing onto hormones, because the number one thing that will be reabsorbed in the large intestine will be bad estrogens. So this is a key component for everybody, but it's certainly a key component for people with hormone-positive cancers. Now, understand a lot of the foods you eat have binders and are binding agents. So a lot of the fibers that you eat, fiber acts as a binder and can help you from reabsorbing toxins. But especially if you're dealing with cancer or a serious disease, you want to add some binders to your diet as well. Phase 4 is moving bile. So remember I said in phase 3, bile is created in the liver, and bile is a fat-soluble substance created in the liver. That's what your liver uses to deposit all of the poisons that it filtered out of your blood. It deposits it in the bile. So from phase 2 liver detoxification pathways, it deposits these toxins into the bile. And then the bile flows down your bile duct and into your common bile duct. That part of it came from your pancreas. So now it's the common bile duct, and it goes into your gallbladder. If you've had surgery and you've had your gallbladder removed, well, still bile is flowing down your bile duct, common bile duct, and now directly into your duodenum, the first part of your small intestine. But if you still have your gallbladder, it's flowing then into your gallbladder. Well, bile can become quite viscous, meaning it becomes thick and it can become bulky, especially if it's full of a lot of toxins. And even more so if you have other issues like fatty liver disease, which is very, very common, or you're exposed to a lot of poisons and heavy metals that your body's dealing with toxins all the time. The common bile duct can become more rigid, less flexible, and bile can become very viscous and can flow slowly. That can be a blockage. Think of your gutters of your house if you had a bunch of leaves in it and it's not going to allow the water to go out. Well, the gutters are going to overflow, right? Well, your liver doesn't overflow, it just backs up. And then you can't filter things through the blood, through the liver, because the liver is stuffed. So helping to move the bile physically can be beneficial. You could take things like things that help produce bile. This would be help for phase 3 also. Globe artichoke can be beneficial. Phosphatidylcholine can be very beneficial. But one great thing to help with phase 4 is just putting a hot pack over the liver. Also, what really helps with this too, helps with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 6, is doing coffee enemas. So this is one of the main reasons why you would do coffee enemas. You could help move bile. Neurologically speaking, remember, all your cells are controlled by neurons. From an electrical standpoint, neurologically speaking, this is controlled by your parasympathetic nervous system. So your parasympathetic nervous system has to do with a main cranial nerve called cranial nerve 10. It's also called your vagus nerve or your vagal nerve. Your vagal nerve also goes down to your rectum. And that's what's stimulated when you do coffee enemas. So really the primary purpose of doing coffee enemas is to stimulate the vagus nerve. By stimulating the vagus nerve, you're stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. By stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, you're stimulating detoxification. You're helping with phase 1 and phase 2 from a neurological perspective, and you're helping with phase 3 and 4 by getting that bile moving. Also, your gallbladder is controlled by your parasympathetic nervous system. So anything you can do to stimulate your parasympathetics, the better. Side point, your parasympathetic nervous system also controls your immune system. What do you need to fight cancer? You need an immune system. So the reason why you do coffee enemas is not because you're constipated. You do coffee enemas to stimulate cranial nerve 10, to stimulate your parasympathetics, to stimulate your immune system, to stimulate your detoxification process. So that's what you need to stimulate healing cancer. So you have to move bile. So doing coffee enemas can help here. Doing a hot pack over the liver can help here. Doing castor oil packs over the liver can help you. And I give some other ideas in the book as well. So very important point. Then I clump these together. Phase 3, creating and binding to bile, meaning you're taking the phase 2 conjugated end products of phase 1 and you're getting it into the bile. Phase 2 is a process called conjugation. That's where the phase 1 end products from the P450 pathways then are changed into a less toxic substance, fat-soluble substance, or water-soluble substances that then are put into the bile so that you can excrete them ultimately in the toilet. So phase 1 and phase 2 are controlled by your parasympathetics and then genetically by your P450s and your PON1 pathways and your multiple other genetic pathways. That's why we do genetic testing, honestly, because we really want to see the health of these detoxification pathways so that we can support them, because there's some nutritional pieces that you could use to support them if you have, let's say, a lot of defects on your P450s or your PON1 pathways. How can we support those if I have a lot of defects, so I tend to have sluggish phase 2 pathways? So think of it this way. Let's say two people are twin brothers and they grew up in the exact same household, but just because you're twins doesn't mean your genes are the same. Let's say one of the twins has a lot of defects on their phase 1 and phase 2 pathways, and the other one has less defects on their phase 1 and phase 2 pathways. The one that has more defects is going to detoxify things more slowly. So let's say they're both exposed to the same amount of glyphosate from eating corn on the cob from their farm that they sprayed with Roundup. So the one who has less defects will be able to get rid of it much better than the one who has more defects. So the one who has more defects, that glyphosate's going to stay in their system, be deposited in the cells, could end up causing cancer months, years, decades down the road, and they can't figure out why they have cancer. Well, one of the reasons can be because of the defects on their phase 1 or phase 2 pathways. That's why we want to look at it, because if you know prior to getting a serious disease, you can actually support those pathways. And if you know when you have a serious disease, supporting those pathways can be really important. I know I'm talking really fast, and I apologize that you might have to listen to this twice, but you guys are smart, and you can fly through this stuff, so this isn't anything new. And then phase 0 is detoxifying the tissues. Now, the reason why I listed it this way, this is where everybody wants to start. So they want to start like, oh my gosh, I'm really toxic and I did this heavy metal test, so I want to go and buy these chelators that are going to pull the toxins out of my body. Well, if you don't deal with all these things first, and you are constipated and you're not binding toxins in the gut and you aren't moving bile very well and you have sluggish phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 pathways, and you're going to pull stuff now out of your tissue, it's got no place to go. And it's just going to circulate and either make you very sick or could even kill you in a more serious way, or most of the time it's going to just circulate somewhere else and deposit somewhere else. Not a healthy thing to do. That's why some people will detox and they'll get sick. It's because their phase 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are not functioning very well, and they're trying to pull stuff out of the tissue. Not a good idea. Don't do that. So you could do all of this concurrently, but make sure you're doing all of that. You have no business doing chelation on somebody that is constipated. If you're a practitioner listening to this, make sure you understand that. You have no business trying to chelate toxins out of somebody who isn't moving their bowel, and you're not addressing binding, you're not addressing some other issues. You can make the person sicker. So make sure you're aware of that. So the other thing to think of is to slow the toxification. We talked about this at the beginning of this module, but starting to learn to make some better decisions. We have all our patients do this. Now, most people are much more educated than 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I used to teach this stuff, 30 years ago. I remember 35 years ago having seminars in my office trying to explain calcium and vitamin C. Well, now with the internet, people are much more educated. There's a lot more information, and I don't have to talk so much about the rudimentary things of health, but making better choices just about things that you can be exposed to could be some of the simplest things that you could do that really can improve your life. I can't buy all organic. It's too expensive. Or I can't buy all organic. I can't even find it. Just download the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen list. I just got this off the web, and this is from Clean Food Crush. They put this together, a wonderful little infographic. These are your Dirty Dozen are the most sprayed, chemically induced products on the market that you could buy. We're all talking about fresh fruits and vegetables here. So that's what you should be trying to stay. That's your first choice, is trying to buy fresh fruits and vegetables in the outside of the grocery store instead of on the inside of the grocery store. Stay away from that as much as possible. And then look at the things that are more clean that you can probably eat with less chance of issues. One thing I'd recommend on this list is corn is almost all genetically modified, so you want to make sure that that's organic. But you don't need to be so specific on avocados being organic because they're just not very sprayed, nor are most melons very sprayed. But tomatoes are sprayed, pears and apples are sprayed heavily, strawberries are probably one of the most toxic things out there that are so heavily sprayed. So you want to buy those things organic. So those are just some simple things to dig into. If you want to really go deep, then start watching some of the videos for my Cancer Genes series. It's a free video series on different genes that we look for when a person has cancer. It's not a book. It's actually a video series that you can get on our website. It's free. Understand all our information is free. I feel like this is a ministry. We're just trying to help people learn and take better care of themselves. But this is when you look at different genetics that we talked about with phase 1, phase 2 pathways. There's a whole bunch of other metabolic pathways that you look at when you're trying to help with detoxification pathways, oxalates and histamines and all sorts of different stuff. So we can get really deep on that. But simple, Simon, try to look at your Clean 15 Dirty Dozen things and understand the detoxification pathways as best as possible. That's going to be your best lifesaver when you're dealing with a sick diagnosis, a cancer diagnosis. So download my book. That will be a best thing for you. The